One of the toughest things in golf is to produce a repeating swing. And I'd like to show you a little stunt which will give you an idea how I get a feeling for repeating. I don't try to strike at the ball, but rather I try to make a swing through the ball, almost a slinging type of motion out to my target. Instead of thinking of details of the little things I'm going to do for each particular swing, you'll see that now the ball is just going to get in the way of a swinging motion forward to my target. It looks something like this. Developing your repeating swing, because that is what you're going to have to live with, your golf swing, and that's what we want to work with. There is no magical, mythical, perfect swing, but there is a best swing that you can deal with. I've asked some people in our audience to write some things down for me. If they'd bring those up right now, I'd like to have them, please. I've asked them to take a piece of paper and write on that piece of paper 3 words, and those 3 words are the words a golf swing. Okay? Thank you. I want to show these cards to you now. And I didn't tell them how to do it. I didn't say write it in script. I didn't say print it. I just said put down 3 words, a golf swing. And I want you to see what they look like. Here is a golf swing. And we'll take the first 3, 4, 5. Okay? Here are the A golf swings that were done by the people in the audience. Every one of them made a golf swing, but each one of them made it differently. Some wrote, some printed. We had some that used different colors, some smaller and some larger, but they all made a golf swing. And you know, that's the way it is with golfers around the world, on the tube, on Saturday and Sunday. When you watch the greatest golfers in the world, there is no one way to make a golf swing. There are a lot of ways that work. They all accomplish the objective. Some are a little prettier than others. Some are bolder than others. But they all accomplish what we ask them to do. And that's one of the things that we want you to understand when we talk about the secret to the perfect swing that so many people come up with. It's a myth. There is no one perfect swing that everybody should try and master. But every one of you has a perfect swing for you, the best swing for you. And that's why we changed the word from a repeating swing to your repeating swing. You know, the golf swing is a fickle, elusive, fleeting kind of thing. Playing golf is trying to learn a constant series of adjustments. You know, one day you're a little stronger, one day you're a little more flexible, one day you're a little more or less tired, and so because of those factors, your production of golf shots is going to vary. Julius Boros, I think, has a great example when he goes out to warm up, and he realizes that golf is a constant state of adjustment, and so he hits a few balls in the practice tee, and he finds out what the ball wants to do for that day, and then he just lets it do it. If it's a little fade, then he plays with a little fade. If it's a little draw, he plays with a little draw, but he doesn't fight it, because he realizes that it is a fickle kind of a thing. There are little flashes of insight that we get, however, that give us an opportunity in golf for self-deception. If I were to offer a selfish, materialistic prayer, it would be something like this. Oh, Lord, please give me a quarter for every time that I've heard a golfer say, now I've got it. I finally figured it out. Now, as a matter of fact, make it just a dime, you know, a dime for every time I said it or thought it, and I would be a very, very wealthy person. But of course, people do learn to repeat a golf swing consistently. They learn to shoot in the 60s, and you read their names in the paper and you see them on television. How do they do it?
Morning, Lloyd.
Morning.
We're on the first tee of the PGA National Championship Golf Course with Lloyd Conant, the producer of our show, And Lloyd has asked me if I would go through some of the details that are involved in developing your own repeating swing. That's what we wanted, right, Lloyd? So what we're going to do, I brought a few props with me, and I'm going to give you some ideas about what happens in the golf swing actually in fine detail, and then when we get out on the golf course, we're going to try to have you forget the details and then play by feel. So Lloyd, I want to take you through a few thoughts here about what is encompassed in developing a repeating golf swing. I brought this prop with me to show you. What we're going to do, the first thing is show you one of the forces that's available to you. The first force that you ought to understand in golf is this one, because it's been used for 500 years, and that's centrifugal force. It's the feeling of something heavy out on the end pulling away from you, like you have when you have your own golf club and you have the weight of the club as you swing it, the feeling of that club pulling away from you out on the end. When I wind up and unwind with this little string and ball, I produce a nice increase in speed that whips and cracks me right in the back. You can hear the pop. Not only does it give me some speed by winding and unwinding, but it gives me consistency. Watch where the ball hits me. The same place every time, because the law of nature allows it to do that. Now in the golf swing, it should be done very much in the same way. We should make a wind up and an unwind so that we can feel the weight of the club head out on the end, and that's how we're able to produce the feeling of a good swing. So when I take my club in my hands, one of the things I want to be able to feel is to feel the weight of this club head. And that comes through proper grip pressure. The grip pressure that it would take is if I were holding my club out in front of me and just lifting it enough to put it over my shoulder. That's all the pressure you really need to feel in your hands to be able to make this swing so that you have the kind of weight feeling on the end that is giving you the most as far as centrifugal force is concerned. So that's what I'm going to do when I place my hands on the club to begin with as far as pressure is concerned. In addition to the pressure in the grip, which is so essential to feeling the weight of the club head and centrifugal force, of course you need the placement of the hands. We're talking about hand placement. That's the most critical factor in controlling the face of the club. The more I rotate my hands in this fashion, the more I will close the club face. The more I rotate my hands in this fashion, the more I will open the club face. Now, how do you put your hands on the club exactly? Well, first of all, everyone's hands are different. So there are going to be minor changes or minor differences between one player and another. But don't let that bother you, because the essentials or the principles are basically the same. First, in the left hand, I want to make sure that I carry the club underneath the pad, the butt pad of my left hand, so that I could let go with my thumb and index finger and bear the weight. So it would be very heavy feeling here, so I could bear the weight under that pad of my left hand. If I don't have it there, it will slip out up above into the palm of my hand. Then that's why the last three fingers of the left hand are so important in holding onto the club. Those are your control fingers, and those are the ones we tend to let go of in the golf swing. Now, how far over should I position my hand? Well, if you let your hand hang naturally at your side, bring it in, cock it slightly downward, and then make those three fingers curl that club right into the palm of your hand, and then simply close your thumb and index finger onto the grip, you'll find that that'll probably be the best position for you. If you were to look for some checkpoints, you could look for a V that comes off of the thumb and index finger that comes up somewhere between your chin and shoulder. Now, that's basically the range of all golfers. They have the V's of their hands pointing somewhere between the chin and the shoulder. The stronger player will have the V's more to the chin. When I say stronger, I mean physically stronger, more adept. The person who has more flexibility in their body and more strength in their arms and hands. The weaker player, the one who's lost some flexibility and strength, will rotate more so the V's point more to the right shoulder than they do to the chin. And other players are somewhere in between that range. So that's a good checkpoint for me. Another one in my left hand is also seeing the back two knuckles of my left hand when I look down over the top of my hand to see that it's in the correct position. Seeing more knuckles would be what we call a stronger grip, and fewer knuckles, a weaker grip. When my right hand goes on, this is a critical placement now. My right hand is placed so that the club is across my fingers of my right hand, not deep into the palm of the hand. but across the fingers so that I see some light on both sides of the shaft. Then I simply close my hand so the hollow of the hand fits over my thumb. My thumb and index finger then fit around the shaft, fairly close to one another to the next middle finger. And that is the positioning with my small finger of my right hand simply laid over or lapped into that space of the index finger of the left. Now you could interlock them, or you could place all your fingers on the grip. That's a matter of preference. If you interlock them, don't go to a deep interlock. Go to just a slight interlock. If you overlap, just lay it across. And if you put all your fingers on, make sure again that the grip is in the fingers and not toward the palm of the right hand. That's the placement that you're looking for in grip. When we talk about developing a repeating swing, you must understand the repetition or the repeating part of it comes from being able to do the preliminaries before the swing starts. It may be hard to understand. You're always thinking about how good my swing's going to be, but the result's not going to be very good unless you get the grip and the aim and the setup correct first. So I begin now, after I've had my idea of what I want to do in a grip, I begin by selecting my aim, by deciding where I want the ball to go and where I don't want it to go. And once I've decided where also it's not going to go, I pick the location of the landing area, and then I choose my spot on the tee. For this tee shot, I'm going to play right from the middle. We've got trouble on the right and trouble on the left on the hole, both water on the right and out of bounds on the left, so I'm choosing the middle. I tee the ball, and when I tee it so that approximately half the ball is above the top of the club head. That's my margin of air that I allow by putting the ball in that position. It gives me an easier chance to get at the ball for my tee shot. Now I take my aim from behind because it's always easier to sight from behind something to line up your target. I've selected my target and draw a line back from my target through the ball, and on the way I pick out an intermediary spot. It's in front of me about 10 or 12 feet. Now that helps me to line up because it's always easier to line up to something close to you than it is something that's a long ways away. So I'm lining up to begin with to that spot. And what do I line up? I line up the club face first. I set the club face so it is facing squarely to my target right in front of me. I move in with my right foot or with 2 feet together. It doesn't make a lot of difference, whatever method you prefer. But I move in so that I get the face square first, and then I move my body into position from that face squareness so that my body is now parallel, my shoulder line, parallel to my flight line. Now I'm called in what I refer to as a square position. I've got my aim, and now we're going to talk about our setup. Our setup is developed in this way. The distance that I'm from the ball is measured from my left arm onto my chest, where I'm now bending at the hips, and just as the club is ready to be sold in the ground, I sit at the knees slightly. That's my measure device. When I can feel the pressure on my chest, where I've come just above the ground and sit slightly, there's the distance from the ball for my driver. If I were with a short club like a wedge, I would go through exactly the same procedure to here on my chest, bend a little at the hips, sit in the knees, and that would be the distance from the ball. So the procedure stays the same each time. You see, again, we're talking about developing a repeating swing, and repeating swing comes from being able to do the same things over and over again. Now, finally, in my setup, I also have to have the location of the ball. Where is it played in relation to my feet? Is it forward, middle, or back? And the forward position is the position I want now because the ball is on a tee. I'm not having to hit down on the ball, so I don't need it back. I need the ball a little forward, somewhere between a position from 2 or 3 inches inside my left heel up to the left heel itself. And that's where I play it, toward the left heel, because I use a lot of leg motion in my body, and one who didn't use as much leg motion would have the ball slightly farther back. So those things put together look like this. I have a precise gripping procedure. I look at my hands as I place them on the club to make sure they're correct. I bring the club, I can feel the weight of it, you see. Just as I told you to bring it up over your shoulder, I can feel the weight of it. I've got my target from behind already. I've picked my intermediary target. I sole the club behind the ball, looking at that intermediary target, look out to my target, place my left foot, then my right foot. I feel the distance from the ball right here on my chest. My arms are hanging comfortably, and I'm in a position now after I make a couple of waggles. You see, to keep myself nice and loose, I'm in position now to start my backswing away from the ball. I get a lot of questions about the details of the swing itself. And although you can't think of details when you're playing, it may be helpful for you to see some of the details as I go through a simulated swing in slow motion. One question that comes up more than any other is, how do I start the backswing? Well, there are several different ways. One of the ways is to start the backswing with a forward motion. That's called a forward press. It can be either a little press of your hands, a slightward press inward with your knee as we press to the left to start pushing to the right. This is a part of many of the classical swings in golf, and various people have different little motions that they use to start the club away, but they like to keep in motion with their body and hands so they don't get too tight when they stand over the ball. Then a little forward press and start the club away in this fashion by pushing it away with their left shoulder and their left arm. There are other players today who start from almost a static or straight position. They take their waggle, but then they start the club from a position in which they are still and then just push it away again, push the club away with their left arm, left shoulder, where the left shoulder turns under slightly, and the club goes away on a line either straight back, some take it outside, and some take it a little inside. And you may wonder, you may say, well, where should I take it when I take it on my backswing? The player who takes the club by pushing it away outside usually ends up by reversing his loop of his swing to the inside to strike it. If you take it away too far on the inside, you tend to loop to the outside to come back to the ball. If you take it more straight away, you'll tend to return on a path that is a little more straight away back to the ball. What's the best for you? You have to do this through trial and error to find out which of those takeaway positions will help you to return the ball from the inside slightly and then down the line to the target, depending on what kind of a shot you're trying to hit. Are you trying to hit a straight ball, a little draw, or a little cut, a little fade? And those are the things that will help you in determining that, and you will try the takeaway, whichever works the best. A little slightly inside, straight away almost, or take it away slightly to the outside. But we begin it by pushing away with the left arm to the takeaway position, now where the wrists start to cock. Somewhere here off the right hip for most players. Most players will find if they simply swing their arms back that a cocking of the wrist starts naturally somewhere off the hip and gradually cocks to the top of the swing where it comes into a fully cocked position. Now, other players will take the club a little farther back. Players like Nicklaus, players like Miller Barber, players like Gabe Brewer, where their right elbow goes out just a little more, they take it away and hold it a little longer and then cock it or set it later in the backswing. This allows for a lot of lash in the swing, but is a little harder to control for direction. Other players will find that they are better by taking the club with an early set, taking away, cocking the wrist early in the backswing, and then simply turning the shoulders back and through, a la Johnny Miller or Hubert Green. So again, there are some variations in here, but the standard procedure is simply to push the club away, almost taking it away on a straight line back for the first 6, 8, or 10 inches, and then let the club take its own natural course up, start the cocking of the wrist just off the hip, and let them set into position at the top of the swing where your left wrist is fully cocked. That's the beginning of the backswing. We've covered the beginning of the backswing. Now, what about the top of the backswing? Many people say, well, where do I really need to come to at the top? How far back should I go? That depends a little on your own flexibility. Where we would like to go is the position in which the great players go, which is somewhere between 10 degrees below parallel and 10 degrees short of. Somewhere in that range of 20 degrees, either slightly past, even, or slightly short of parallel. Why do we need the club to get back to parallel? Well, simply because you need to wind up your body enough so that you can deliver some force to get distance. And if your club only gets back this far in your backswing, you're going to be severely handicapped for distance. So that's one of the reasons why we need to do some exercises to stretch ourselves so that we can get there. Now notice, as I take it back, how far back my club goes on a tee shot. Full swing now, tee shot swing. You see, I'll reach the position at the top of the swing where I'm parallel or even maybe slightly below parallel. Now, people who end up with a golf swing where the club points to the ground like this, they really haven't overswung as far as taking their club back. They've simply let go with their left hand. Watch as I grip my left hand, and they bent their left arm too much. You see, now my club is in fine position. But by bending my arm, letting go with my hand, the club points way down here, and I can see it out of the corner of my eye. So the problem there really more is not in swinging too far back, it's in letting the control of the golf club go through the left hand and the left arm. So what I'm going to do is take the club back with a good grip of my last three fingers of my left hand, swinging it back. Golf swing is not only a swing forward, it's a swing backward. So when I push it away and get it into motion, then I want to start swinging it. I want to feel the weight of the club head. So the distance at the top will be with arm extended, not locked straight like a rod, because it's very unnatural. Really, it's the position in which you want your arm extended with the left hand holding on at the top and somewhere near to parallel at the top of the swing. Now I would like to show you what it looks like to have the left hand in position at the top. The position at the top of the golf swing is very critical because the left wrist is one of the controllers of the face. If the left wrist is cupped in this position, now the face has opened. You see, as the wrist goes to a cup position, the face of the club opens, and you're going to have to do something very dramatic on the downswing to square the face up again. If you're going to play from this position, you're going to hit a lot of slices. If you square the wrist a little more, you square the club face. The back of the left wrist is now flat with the back of the forearm. When the wrist turns this way, this is a little too much. It's closed the face, and that's very hard on your wrist to play from that position. Slightly arched is okay, but this way, very difficult anatomically, and it has the club face shut down dramatically. So let's square it so the back of the left wrist and the forearm are about in a flat line. Some of you may not be able to do that, and you may have to go a little cupped. If you do, then I would suggest that you take a stronger grip, one that shows more knuckles on the back of your left hand. What starts the down or forward swing? And I really like the word forward swing better because the idea is really we're trying to swing something to make the ball go forward. It's not a downward sharp hitting action, it's a swinging forward. And if you set up on an iron shot, for example, with your weight a little bit to the left, it'll travel slightly downward, but it's basically a forward swing. So let's talk about it as a forward swing. When I start the forward swing, what begins or initiates the action? Well, depends on if you're going to make a good swing or a bad swing. A bad swing is initiated by the hands immediately. The old hit it syndrome, where you get to the top of your swing and something says, hit! And of course you start with your hands right away, and that's incorrect. Where you should really start this swing is in a link-like chain action that begins right down here in the feet. And so when I begin the downswing, I want the left heel, which is raised slightly in the air when I've taken my body turn, fully wound. Now as the left heel gets to the ground, that's one of the initiators of the golf swing. Left heel down, left knee moving toward target, weight working toward the left side, and a little lateral motion as I shift to the left, and all the rest of my body is simply following. It's working together. As the heel goes down and the knee goes to the left, my body starts to unwind, my hips start to return just slightly, and my club starts to drop down, but I haven't uncocked my wrist at all. It's really simply a dropping position. And as I drop a little further, you'll find the right elbow drops toward the pocket. It's one of the nice little keys for you to help you time your swing correctly. Is to say, I'm going to feel my elbow in my pocket. That all comes from the correct leg action, initiating the swing by going to the left, with heel down, motion going to the left, with my left knee hip is bowing outward a little bit, and my arm simply following and doing nothing else but following that link action swing. Now I'm in the power package position. I'm in the position which I've retained all of the power that I've gotten from winding up and unwinding. It's still loaded, the gun's loaded, and now it can go off. And to make it go off, all I have to do is let it go. I don't try to hit here, I simply let it unwind, and that's the swinging motion that comes from the feeling of centrifugal force and the firing of the gun that comes from the unwinding of the body and simply letting the hands be transmitters of power, not creators of power. So if we look at it in slow motion, it will look like this. From the top, the heel is down, the left side moving to the left laterally, the knee separating the left knee from the right slightly, the club dropping to the inside, elbow toward the hip. As we're moving forward now, the head will retain its position as my club approaches the ball in this fashion, and my right heel will start to roll in and off the ground slightly as I roll to the inside of my right foot. I make my contact position there, and from there my finish is simply allowing to happen all the force that is coming forward, allowing it to get to the left foot, still holding on with the left hand to a good balanced finish. And that's the swing as it looks in slow motion. Now we're going out of the fairway to play a hole where we're going to place the ball in certain situations to give you a chance to see how we play the other shots, the fairway woods, the long irons, the middle irons, and the short irons. You'll be able to see some of the details, the slight adjustments that need to take place in order to make those shots successful. Actually, the swing basically stays the same, but it's the setup that makes the difference. One of the things before we do that I'd like to discuss with you is how we play the game as far as our brain is concerned. Sometimes you hit a shot on the golf course which you call a no-brainer. Actually, it may have been a wrong-brainer because we have two hemispheres in our brain, a left and a right. And the left hemisphere is for decision-making. What club do I hit? How much wind is blowing? What's the distance? Where's the trouble? All of the little details that are involved in the decision-making part of making a golf shot. The right brain is the affective side, the side that, well, you look out there and you picture it, you feel it. When we go to hit a golf shot, once we've taken care of the details in our left brain, and then we're set up ready to hit the shot, that's when we switch to our right brain. When we're taking the details out of our mind, we're not trying to make a swing by saying low back, cock your wrist, left wrist flat, shift your weight. You can't play with those kinds of details in your mind. What you play with is pictures. And so we're going to see now as we go on the golf course the details for the various shots, but when we get ready to play golf, we play with pictures. Well, we've come out here on the fairway and placed the ball in a position where this par 4 is really turned into a par 5 because I'm going to have to hit a fairway wood to get it up close to the green. The green's surrounded by bunkers. We're hitting into a wind, and it's a little over 240 yards, so I'm going to play up short. I'm going to use a 4.5 wood, play up short of the bunkers, but I'm going to show you how to hit the fairway wood. First of all, the first consideration you want to look at is the lie. This is a good lie here, so I won't have any trouble getting the ball airborne, and I can use my wood. If I had a real tight lie, I might have to go to an iron. The next thing is, differing from my tee shot now, the ball is sitting down rather than up. Because it's sitting down, I have to position it differently between my feet. Remember on the tee shot, I had the ball placed up off the inside of the left heel. Well, that's because I was sweeping the club, having it reach the bottom of its arc just behind the ball and sweeping the club off the tee as I followed through the shot. Now, I need to get a little more descent in my swing, and the way I do it is bring my right foot in just a little closer and also position the ball another roll or two back inside the left heel. So I'm about 2 inches inside the left heel. That's going to help me hit with a little more descent. Otherwise, my swing is very much the same, but not quite as full. Fairway wood shot. Weight, instead of quite as much behind the ball, with my center behind the ball, is a little more over to the left. Those are the considerations that you need to take when you go to hit the fairway wood shot. Now I simply sweep it with a little descent, and I have the ball up in the air just short of the green so that I can make a simple pitch to the green to make my shot at a birdie. I've moved the ball about 60 yards farther down the fairway so that we're 180 from the green, hitting into the wind, and I've selected a 3-iron to show you how we make the swing with the long irons. Now really this swing is very much like your fairway wood swing, except that we have again brought the stance a little closer together as far as the foot position. My feet are a little less than shoulder width apart now. I'm going to play the ball with the long iron close to my same position that I played from the fairway wood. slightly back inside from the heel, about 2 inches inside the left heel. My feet are not as wide as the fairway wood shot, and that means that my center of my body has moved over so that it's right on the back edge, in line with the back edge of the ball. My swing is almost a parallel or very, very close to parallel, maybe slightly short of it. Otherwise, the shot is very much like the fairway wood shot. I hit with a little bit of descent so that I can get a slight divot. Looks like this. Now we're getting closer to the scoring zone. I'm about 125 yards away from the flagstick. I'm into the wind. I'm going to use a 9-iron. One of the things I have to watch for on my short iron shots is that I don't end up reaching too far for the ball. When I bring the club down again, it's on my chest, and I feel the distance by measuring the distance again so that when I bend at the waist, the club's just there, and I sit at in my knees. So now the pressure of the left arm again is against my chest. I feel the right distance from the ball for this 9-iron shot. My feet are not as wide apart as they were on the middle iron shots. The ball is played close to the center, slightly left of center, and I'm going to play the shot with less of a backswing because this is a shorter club and it just doesn't go back as far. As my feet come closer together, it's a very important point to watch. As my feet come closer, my center of my body shifts gradually more to the left, so that now my body center is almost right over the ball, and it can be even slightly on the left side of the ball. That helps you to hit with a descending blow, which gets more and more important as you get to the shorter irons. So you'll note that my body center and my legs are shifted slight bit to the left. That gives me the descent to hit this shot. As you get closer to the green, direction becomes more critical. I'd like to give you a $100 tip now on how to get your accuracy a little more zeroed in on the flag. I'm going to take a $100 bill and use it as an alignment device and place it down in the position going right to the flag, as though my divot would be going in that direction. That's what I'm going to envision as I hit this shot. Make contact with the ball first, taking a little divot that's going right toward the flag, and finally with a divot we'll cut off just a little over on the left side of the flag. So that's my picture as I'm about to hit this shot. And that's a good little idea to help you to get your club to go down the target line toward the flag. There we've taken you from the full swing off the tee with a driver to the fairway wood, long irons, middle irons, and short irons through a swing. The swing really basically stays the same, only the details in setup and the length of swing, the club selection, ball position, the small things are the only things that change, but a golf swing is a golf swing whenever you're making a full shot.
As I can recall from my own experience, I don't think I've ever run into a player, even the longest hitters in the world, who wouldn't like to hit it just a little bit farther. And I'm sure that's true about everyone that's in our audience this evening. My good friend Paul Bertheley has made a comment. He said, you know, these are golf's golden steps. The ones you walk past your opponent's drive. They are the most fun of any steps you take in golf. Now, they might not be all that terribly practical if they're going in the wrong direction, but nonetheless, hitting that long tee shot is a lot of fun. But even the most prestigious long ball hitters have recognized that there are some limitations. A guy like, a tour star Jim Dent, who was for many, many years, and when he was in the heyday of his long hitting, recognized that this particular shortcoming when he made the following comment. He says, sometimes I just airmail it, but I don't always get the right zip code. And for that reason, there is some liability to hitting the ball a little too far, but I don't think that's a problem with the majority in the audience, so we're going to try to talk to you about the secret quotes to distance. Lack of distance is a severe handicap. If you try to just figure it this way, let's say you can hit a golf ball 198 yards, maximum. And if that's true, what's the least number of strokes that you could play a 400-yard hole in? 3. 3 would be the absolute least you could play a 400-yard hole. Now, what if you could drive the ball 201 yards? Then what would the least be that you could play that hole in? 2. Now, it's just that simple. That if you can get it a little farther, up to a certain point, you see, you're handicapped if you can't reach that green in 2 shots, or you have to take an extra shot all the time to get it to the green, then you are suffering from a real handicap that puts your scores into double digits on too many occasions. So what is the secret to distance? Dead silence. Everybody's waiting. What is the secret to distance? The secret to distance is to choose strong parents. Well, that's not a very satisfying answer, I'm sure, leaving you with very little hope because you didn't have much choice of your own in that particular selection. But the one thing I want to make in that point is obviously heredity has some influence on whether or not you are a big hitter or whether you are a short hitter. But I want you to know, absolutely guarantee you, that even though you're influenced heavily by your genes, what you've acquired, there are some things that you can do to hit it farther than you presently hit it. And that's where the hope comes in.
Gary, how do you get all that distance and still maintain the accuracy that you have?
Well, Lloyd, really there are no secrets to the thing, but there are principles involved. And I did a study several years ago in which we studied the human factors influencing the golf drive for distance and found that there were 4 factors: strength, flexibility, the leverage that you have from your left arm and the levers in your body, and finally, the technique factor. If you'd get my little training device over there, I think I'll explain to the group, first of all, what we do when we're talking about strength, timing, flexibility, and the leverage factors. This is one of the pieces of equipment that I use for training to develop my strength and flexibility. Now, Lloyd, what I do with this is I have a series of exercises that help me develop that. This happens to be a very heavy weighted device, and I can add weight to it, which I've been doing over the last several months. What I do is start with a little routine where I work on the contact position first. You see, one of the secrets to golf consistency, we talked about accuracy, is being able to contact the ball with the back of the left wrist going to the target. When we have the left wrist breaking down in this position, that's when we provide us with our big hooks and slices. So we're trying to get the back of the left hand to facing the target, and the left arm and the extension of the club in a straight line. So I do that first as a little rehearsal of good, consistent contact position. That helps me with my accuracy, and of course with this heavy weight of some 7.5 pounds out on this lever, it also helps me with strength. The next thing I do, the next little exercise I do is for my forearms. You see, if I had to have one exercise that I did that was more important than any other, it would be the strengthening of my left gripping hand, which is the forearm flexors of the left hand. This is the controller of the golf club, the last 3 fingers in the left hand. And if I just had the one exercise to do, I would do something to make those stronger. You also have the extensors in the back of the left forearm, which help you to keep your wrists flat. So I'm going to work on an exercise that'll help me with my flexors and extensors. I take this weighted device down about halfway, and I do a little pronation and supination drill here, a rotation of my flexors and extensors as I turn the weighted device over, both in my left hand first and then finally in my right hand. I do it slowly. I don't want to hurt myself. I've got to work up to this thing because it's the kind of thing where you can injure yourself if you work up to it too quickly. Usually I'm doing about 10 to 12 repetitions. 12 is my top number, and I do those both in my left and right hand to strengthen my grip and my forearms. The next exercise that I do is one that I do out in front of me. Remember when we've been working on trying to get power by letting the elbow come to the pocket? Well, I put it in close to that position and then hold the club at extension from me, this extra weighted device that's like the golf club,
and I rotate it out in front of me, getting my contact position like a baseball swing, but it helps me again to develop the strength in my last 3 fingers of my left hand. I do some flexibility exercises with this as well, stretching behind me when I put the club away from me and behind me so that I can let my upper back muscles be stretched and help me to get the long backswing that'll get me the distance that I've been trying to work on and from a flexibility standpoint. Remember we said there was both strength and flexibility, so the things I'm doing here are through a full range of motion so that I get the flexibility in addition to the strength. I have a full series of these basically strength-building exercises, but it culminates with this final one, which I call the 30-second swing. In the 30-second swing, I take my grip position set up as I would as though I were on the golf course, and then take the full swing in slow motion with this heavy, heavy weighted club, getting my weight back to my right side a little bit, letting my left heel rise in the air, and putting it in exactly the same position. So it's building strength also while it's building technique. You may note one of the things that happens when I make my full swing as I'm doing it in slow motion with this weighted club. And it's a question that a lot of people ask me, and it has a relationship to do with the head. What does the head do? Do you keep your head still? Well, really you don't. And as you'll look, as I take the club back, and this is a part again of my rehearsal of technique, even on this strength building exercise, as I take my head back, too many people who try to keep their head still end up balancing over on the left foot in what we call a reverse pivot, trying to keep their head down, their eye on the ball. That's some of the worst teaching that you can get. It comes usually from husbands to wives rather than from your PGA professional. Your professional knows that you can let your head rotate a little as you go back, and also on the tee shot and some of your bigger shots, your head also may move even slightly a little bit to the right, come back to its original position, and stay there through the contact position. On your shorter irons, of course, your head will be more stationary, only rotating now, but not moving laterally so much. So you'll find that in your making these strength-building exercises, that you also can work on technique as well. And I will repeat that series of exercise again, 10 to 12 repetitions until I get up to 12, and then I will add another weight to my package. Those are the things that I do for strength primarily. For flexibility, in addition to these, I also find that it's very helpful if I work on some body stretching exercises, some kinds that we use, for example, in beginning yoga, hatha yoga, where you do things like salute to the sun, where we start out simply stretching the back, back bending, a little forward bending, and soft, easy stretching, no heavy bouncing. See, I'm keeping this stretched position with my knees slightly flexed as I go down because I don't want to hurt my back. And if you're going to do this, you have to do this very carefully and very easily. So I stretch and just hang. See, let yourself hang until you can feel a stretch in your hamstring muscles in the backs of your legs. And a little bit, very easy. Don't work hard on your lower back here. Just let it hang and stretch the hamstrings. And gradually I do a little thing where I stretch out my body in this fashion. I'm stretching, I'm feeling the stretch in my back, and I'm letting myself relax and breathe as I get in this position. And gradually up, again working to keep my legs reasonably straight, just holding these positions. And then a little stretch forward, arching the back up, left leg again forward, arching up, and finally walking up into my position very slowly. That helps to keep me in a flexible position so that I can make the full turn for the golf backswing. So we have strength, we have flexibility, we have our lever length, the length of our left arm. In this case, we can't change it. So one thing you might do, trying with your professional to find out if it's going to work for your betterment, is to try a longer club. We've had a lot of senior professionals who have gone from a standard 43-inch driver to possibly a 46-inch driver. If you can make center face contact with that club and swing it within yourself, you'll find that that will help you to pick up some distance. finally, the fourth factor, probably the most important, is the technique factor. The technique factor is the thing that you need to go to your professional for. It's the thing that he can work with you on your swing technique so that you can learn this late hit that we've been working on, where the elbow will go toward the pocket, where you've still kept the gun loaded, and where you can fire at the very last instant to get that timing that produces the whip lash action to drive the ball forward. That's what I would suggest to you as probably the best avenue of working on your own swing, particularly for distance. So those factors are strength, flexibility, the lever lengths in your body, particularly we can work on possibly the length of the club, and finally, the technique that your professional has so well in store for you to work on your timing for distance. Well, this topic is going to be on practice. Practice making ideas become realities. How many times have you heard the comment, practice makes perfect? That's pretty common, isn't it? I don't believe it. I would like to think that practice makes permanent, because if you are practicing a shot that looks something like this, and you do it enough, you will not get perfect, but it will become permanent. So that is really a better saying than practice makes perfect, is practice makes permanent. And therefore, it behooves you to find out the best possible technique to practice, because what you're practicing will become permanent. Practice is a pretty important part of the game, as you can see from a couple of our pictures here. This fella has practiced his wedge a little bit and has become quite proficient. And there are a lot of different ways to practice, as you can see by this next shot. This gentleman is taking the opportunity to practice at home, and pitching those little olives into the cocktail glasses is another form of practice in this particular example. But I want to tell you that you people here at this particular seminar have chosen to attend because you want to learn. You want to learn something about a motor skill, something more than you already know, motor skill being golf. You might ask yourself, well, what is learning? If I want to learn something, well, what is really learning? What's learning about? Well, learning is a relatively permanent change in behavior that comes about by practice. I will repeat. Learning is a relatively permanent change in behavior that comes about by practice. And the key word, there are several key words in there, but the most important word is practice. Somehow or other, golfers have this misconception that they have an idea of the expectation of execution from suggestion. That someone can say something and that's all, oh, is that it? Just change my swing plane? Okay, I've got it. You haven't got it. You might have it in your brain, but you don't have it in your body. You can pay $15 for a lesson, or $25 or $50, and the professional can do the following things. They can diagnose, observe, prescribe, but you can't do the last thing. And the last thing is being able to get you to do it, to practice it. That's something you have to do. He can't practice for you. He can do all those things, but he can't apply. That's up to you. Practice is one of those things that just is an absolute necessity to improve. No one has ever been born with enough natural ability to be a champion. Born with enough natural ability to be a champion without practice. A great story about a young professional aspiring to be a tour player, coming up to Ben Hogan when Ben was just at the end of his career, saying, Mr. Hogan, sorry to interrupt, I just want to ask you a question. He said, I want the worst way to be a great player. And he said, is there something you can tell me, a secret? You've worked at this game so much. Is there a secret that you can tell me that'll help me? He said, yes. You got a practice bag, son? He said, yes, sir. He said, use it. That's the secret. That was Hogan's secret. Quite a great champion's practice. Well, if you practice enough, then you can focus on the goal, the results. You can focus on the what's going to happen in the shot rather than the mechanics of making it. Because if you're there having to think about it, see, head down, eye on the ball, arms straight, bend your knees. If you haven't done the practice that gets you over that, then that's the way you play. And you can't make a golf swing playing that way. It happens 1001, 1002. It's all over. What have you had a chance to think about? So really, when you get down to it, practice allows you the freedom to go out and play and to be able to play with some confidence. What kind of practice are we talking about?
Constructive.
Right. Constructive, positive practice. The first kind would say, let's talk about some physical practice and then mention mental practice. I was doing a seminar with Jackie Burke, one of our great champions of the PGA and also the Masters. And Jackie told us a story about when he was on tour, the things that he used to do. He said, we would get a little game up sometimes with some of the good players. You'd play, before the tournament started. Monday, Tuesday, practice round. They want to play for a little something, $20 or whatever thing. We go out and play. He said, if I was out on the golf course and I started putting badly, he said, I couldn't get in my pocket. I couldn't reach in my pocket fast enough. So he said, here, take your 20. I'm leaving. I would get off somewhere out way from everybody else, late in the evening, out on the golf course so nobody could see me. And I'd get out of that putter from 4 feet, and I'd putt until I could make 100 in a row. And when I got up to my first 4-foot putt in the tournament, I didn't think I could make it. I knew I could make it. I didn't come here to win $20. I came here to win this tournament. Great idea, you see, about practicing with that kind of intensity. Well, it's not practical for all of us to do those kinds of things, but there are some things we can do. Just putting, for example. A good one is the 10-foot, 1-foot increment putting drill, where we put markers, tee markers in the putting green, 1 foot from the hole until we're back to 10 feet. We make it from 1 foot. And we go to 2 feet. And then we go to 3 feet. And then to 4 feet, and we're still making it. Now, if we miss, we have to go back to 1. And you putt until you can get to 10. It's a great little challenge. It's not easy. Try it. Get in what we call the circular putting fashion, progressive circle, where you start 2 feet from the hole and you putt in quadrants, from the north and the east and the south and the west. And you putt 2 feet, and when you make it from there, you move back another foot. You putt from all those different directions and see how far back you can get. Another good idea about practice. Another way about practicing I think is terrific is to create situations on the practice range like you have on the golf course. One that I see very infrequent, but which is very good, is to play 18 holes. I mean, just like what's your home favorite course? Tee it up, there's your driver. Look out there, there's my first hole on my favorite course. What do I have to do with that first hole? Got to hit down the left side and fade it a little bit. Okay, that's what I'm going to hit. Hit your shot, goes in the left rough. Going to have to play an iron on the rough. Let's see, I have a 2-iron. I've got to hit it down. It's par 5. Got to hit it and knock it out of there. Oh, hit that pretty well down there. I've got an 8-iron to the green. All right, take my 8-iron. Hit an 8-iron shot. In other words, play right through like you'd play a round of golf. Because that way you get to use all the clubs in your bag. You aren't just out there beating one shot after another. Another wonderful way to practice is to practice with someone in a competitive situation when you say, all right, we're going to play to 5. 7-iron to the flag. Closest to the flag on right or left with a 7-iron. Okay? I hit. Mine's 10 yards right. You hit 2 yards right. You got 1. And you play competitively. Now, what element have I introduced in all these suggestions? The element of what? Competition. See, every one of those puts some pressure on you, because that's golf. When you go out to play, you have a little pressure on you. Why is it that people play, you get in the member guests, and you see the practice round, the guy just finishes the practice round. Oh, if you stood by the 18th green, on the practice day of the member guests, everybody's playing 3 hours, 15 minutes, 3 hours and a half, coming off the 18th green, oh my, boy, I wish I'd have saved that round for the boy, I played so well today. Then the next day, then the tournament starts. Now the rounds go to 5 hours. They're all taking extra waggles and extra time. They walk off the 18th green, oh my God, why couldn't I have shot today what I shot yesterday? You see, kind of thing. And one of the reasons for those things is we create so many situations in our practice on the range which are unrealistic. We don't really practice like a round of golf. And so when the round of golf comes, we're really not quite prepared. When Tony Lima was an unknown professional out in a little 9-hole course in Reno, Nevada, he used to practice as if he were playing in the U.S. Open. He'd name the balls, Hogan, Demerit, Snead. He'd play 4 balls, and Lima. And he'd putt saying, this is for the U.S. Open Championship. So when he was actually there, in the situation, he had been there before. Larry Nelson, who's one of our fine young players today, told us a story at our PGA National Academy last year that went something like this. He said, you know, the year before I was really unhappy at the end of the year because I'd done such a lousy job out of the bunkers. I felt it really hurt my game. So I dedicated myself to one thing. I am going to be a better bunker player in the following year. And that was this last year. And then to Greensboro, in a tournament where he was in contention, and Mark Hayes was on the green, and Mark Hayes, all he had to do was make two putts for a reasonably short distance. But here, Larry Nelson had pulled his shot in the bunker, was in way up against the side of a bank on a very steep shot with a high raising lip bunker. Difficult. If you could get it out of the bunker, it'd be tremendous. No way he could keep the ball on the green. He didn't think if he did keep it on the green, he couldn't get it close. He holed it. And he said to the kids, he said, you know, it was some luck, but I'll tell you, I spent 1,000 hours practicing bunkers last year during the off season. And he said, it wasn't all luck. So practice does make permanent. You know, it doesn't always have to be physical practice. How do you don't have time to do that? Practically speaking, you just don't have the time to go out and hit balls. Why not mental practice? I have a friend, Pat Riley, who's the head professional at Annandale, a very fine old club out in California, and Pat did something with a very busy neurosurgeon that was taking lessons from him that I think is a marvelous example of practice where you don't have to hit balls. The surgeon came to him and says, Pat, we're having the medical tournament. He said, I'm coming for a lesson because I haven't hit many balls this year. I haven't practiced much. I haven't played much. I want a lesson because I'm really hacking around. He said, but I just don't have time to practice. I want you to put it on cassette tape because I can play it on the way to the office and back, way to the hospital and back, and I can listen to it. Even though I don't have time to hit balls, I can try to remember what you told me. The doc shot an all-time best round in that tournament from listening to that tape over and over again on the way to the hospital and back because it was so fixed in his mind the right things that he should do. You don't have to hit balls all the time. Mental practice is also valuable practice. Well, some of you say, I'm too old. Can't teach an old dog new tricks. But as Robert Hutchins, the great boy wonder president of Chicago University, once said, people aren't dogs and education isn't tricks. You're never too old to learn if you want to learn. You've played a few holes in life already, and you may be down to the last 9 or farther along with only 3 left to play. You don't need to finish double bogey, triple bogey, double bogey. It's not too late. You can still get better. You can learn. You can improve. Why not finish with 3 pars? Practice will help get you there. Golf is a great game for triers. And I've never underestimated of what a person can accomplish in golf that has a desire. You know, I have a friend that's a golf director up at the Concord. Used to be from Tullahoma, Tennessee. His name is Hubie Smith. And he gave us an answer to a tough question that we've experienced in golf at various times, and that is golf a natural game or an unnatural game? Is it easy or is it hard? And this is what Hubie said. He said, hell, golf's easy. All you got to do is tee it, hit it, hunt it, hold it, and record it. Well, the only problem is that for some of you, it's difficult to get those double digits in those little boxes. And for that reason, we would like to do some things tonight that will help you get smaller numbers, make it a lot more fun, and make it easier to put into those particular boxes. One of the ways that we can do this is to show you that there is an understanding in the golf swing, I think that we all need to have, that relates to where are we going to really have the fun to get the most out of this game? Where are we going to get the real fun and satisfaction that we should be getting from our golf experience? Getting the most out of golf. Most of what? What are we talking about the most of? Why do people play in the first place is a good question. Well, I kind of wonder sometimes how compelling this game can be, because long after the lights in the club parking lot are turned on, you'll still find the solitary golfer out there hitting one more practice ball. Why is it? Why is it that we can get on a cold, rainy April night a person who drives 15 miles across town to hit lumpy range balls out in a cold and difficult golf driving range situation? When the rest of the world is asleep at 6:30 in the morning, you can find golfers out there pulling their carts, tracing their struggles through the dew on the golf course, trying to search for that perfect golf swing. In the men's locker rooms, we find naked men running around swinging towels, thinking about, if only on 17 I had done it like this, you see. And in their offices, there are distress marks in the ceiling from the idea of trying to figure out what that perfect swing is going to be. Their carpets at home have divot marks on them. Their lawns are torn up from trying to figure out how to pitch and chip. Yet for all that, golf is still a game. It's a special game, but it is still a game. And if we asked ourselves, what are the reasons that we really play this game? And I'd like to find out from some of you, what are some of the reasons that you have? Why do you play golf? Let's hear from you. Why do some of you play golf in our audience? Why? Huh? Challenge. I guarantee you, golf is a challenge. Okay, that's a good one. Challenge. Why else do we play golf?
Relieve frustration.
Hey, that's a good one. To kind of relieve frustration. Did you say relieve frustration? The interesting thing is, it is a relief. It's most of a relief kind of from the day-to-day chores that we all have. We all have a routine or chores that we have, whether it's the office, whether it's happens to be the house and the housework, or the kids, or the plant, or wherever it happens to be. There are things that just get us away from the thing that we have to do every day. And so it gives us a relief from those things. What else? Why else do we play? Yes. Okay, exercise is a beauty. Isn't it nice? You know, all you have to do is walk over to where they put those automatic carts and get in there, and they just drive you around. Next thing we'll have is a machine that swings the club for you. And right. Well, exercise, yes, particularly if you get a chance to walk around the golf course. What are some other reasons? Huh? Companionship. Boy, is that a good one. Companionship. The social part of it. Companionship. That's one of the really basic reasons why a lot of people play. And just think of all the nice people that you've met playing golf around the world that you can relate to. And even a stranger walking up to the first tee and you say, well, let's play together. And it's a way to meet people and also have a good time with people. There are a lot of other reasons. Travel. Golf is a good stimulus to go to some of the most beautiful places in the world. And, of course, the aesthetics and the beauty of the whole thing. One of the things we see, of course, is we demonstrate here the enjoyment of the game. It really can be a lot of fun. People can really have a good time playing. We also find that we talk about the exercise part of it. You know what? The 18-hole round of golf is an equivalent of playing 1 hour of vigorous tennis because you're doing it over 4 hours, but you're burning up the same amount of caloric expenditure during that time. So there's more activity for a person walking than you might have someone lead you to believe. Also, the aesthetics and the beauty part of it. There's so many beautiful things in a golf course. It is a haven from the concrete jungles that we have to live in, and so there's some aesthetics to golf which are really very, very special. Most the frequent enjoyment, what any combination of these things that we may get is what we ought to try and look for when we're trying to get more fun out of our golf. You know, I wrote a golf book in 1970 for Prentice Hall. The first line went something like this. Golf is a game, and as such, is meant to be enjoyed. We have a PGA member, John Gehring, in Atlanta Country Club, who's on writing on the values of golf, has described it this way. Golf can be a trip into tranquility. That's a marvelous line. A trip into tranquility. But you know what? It can also be an expedition into exasperation. And that is one of the first things that we've got to learn to contend with. I remember seeing a cartoon that of a golfer coming in the front door. Matter of fact, he didn't open the door. He blasted his way through the door. You could see his image on the door with the golf bag even over his shoulder. He had this terrible, menacing, angry look on his face, and his wife shouted down the stairs, "How did your golf go today, honey?" And it was obvious that it had absolutely destroyed him. And it'd be funny if it weren't so true for so many people. We have a lot of people in this world that where the score dictates the treatment that they give to the rest of the world for the next 12 to 24 hours. Right? Come on now, admit it. Admit it. You are the same people that do that. You've sinned in that area, and I'm sure that we all have, because at times we let it get to us when really there's a tremendous amount of fun available there if we can look for some other things besides just the numbers. Hans Krauss was John F. Kennedy's back doctor, and he wrote a book called Backache. And you ask people why they exercise, and some of them would say, they gave the reasons for exercise. He said, "What do you do for exercise?" And they said, "Well, we play golf on the weekend." And he'd laugh a little bit. He'd say, "Well, you know, the reason that people play golf like business tycoons and Wall Street experts and presidents of the United States is because recessions, depressions, and wars look like small things after a bad round. And that's when you really let it get to you." I say that's really crazy, though. That's really crazy, because when we think about it again, why do we play? You know, one word that we didn't put up there yet, we talked about exercise and getting away from our chores and the challenge, companionship, and being out of doors and the nice aesthetics. But what's the one basic reason we play? Fun. Enjoyment. For fun. To have a good time. And that's really the number one reason why we should be saying why we're out there playing golf, to enjoy it. Now, but people enjoy different aspects of it, and so we can't say, well, you need this or you need that, because we all are going to like different things about the game. But the problem is that when we put all of our eggs into the basket of scoring, and we say we're only going to have fun when we play well, then we're going to have fun about 10 or maybe 20% of the time, because that's the amount of time that we play as well as we think we should. And that's not a good enough return for our investment of that time. You know, do you realize that you and a lot of other golfers spend 5 to 6 days working every week to get the opportunity to be out there in the first place? And if that's true, you need to really make it more worthwhile, to play not only the best you can, but if you don't play the best you can, at least you ought to have fun, even if you don't make that low number that you'd like to have made. You certainly don't need to create any more hassles in your life. That attitude of trying to have fun on the golf course does have an influence on whether or not you play better. If you're trying to have fun, if you're in a positive, happy frame of mind, you're going to shoot better numbers, and it's been proven in some of the greatest sports in the world. If you want to ride AM or PM, if you want to ride or walk or compete or socialize, or with the kind of people that you want to choose to play with, who do you have the most fun with? What kind of attitude would you play with that you enjoy the most? Are you willing to try new games? A Scotch foursome, playing a one-club event. I play with wooden shafts every once in a while, just to change the pace. A lot of fun. Then why not create these conditions to have more fun? Seek out some ways to enjoy your golf more. The alternative, being frustrated and angry, is not a very becoming one, because it hurts your performance. You know what anger does to your body. It tightens you up. It makes your heart run faster. You perspire. It makes you do all the things that might help in some other sports, but I guarantee you they're detrimental in golf. So I would suggest to you that one of the things you ought to do is start asking yourself the question, what can I start doing to look for the things that I really enjoy in the game, and then go ahead and pursue those, and pursue them very actively. The psychology of managing yourself on the golf course. My goodness. Was there ever a game that had so much psychology in it? Did you ever stop to think about how much of golf was physical and how much was mental? You know, if you ask a tour player, they'll say, golf's 90% mental. 90%, that's a lot. And they're very serious about it. So you see, once you have the ability to strike a ball that well, then really it boils down to how well you think, how well you manage your mind. But one fellow, as I made that comment in a group, shortly after I'd heard this comment, I made that comment to a group of people, and I said, golf's 90% mental. And one of the fellows in the audience says, whoever made that comment ain't reached her 65th birthday yet. And that put a little more insight into my statement, because obviously it depends. If you're very physically adept, it becomes mostly mental, but at the beginning stages particularly of the game, it's a lot physical. And if you can't hit a ball very far, you're not very strong, then it's a lot of physical in it. But let's just imagine, for the time being, not to belabor the point, that golf is 50% mental and 50% physical. Will you accept those figures just for discussion's sake? The question then is, what percent of the practice time that you spend do you spend on mental practice? 0. I will bet you that there isn't anybody in this room who spends 10% of the practice time they spend in golf on mental practice. Why? If it's at least 50% mental, why don't we practice the mental part? Because you don't know what to practice, because no one has ever told you what to practice. Oh, you can get you people who are highly motivated if the pro tells you, go out and hit 1,000 bunker shots. Oh, you'll be right out there the next day, 1,000 bunker shots. Or go over and hit 200 shots chipping, or hit 2 hours with the drivers. Boy, you'll do that. But it's hard to get people, even when you know what to tell them, it's hard to get people to practice the mental side of golf. And it is possible. And that's one of the things we're going to do in this particular session. One of the first things that's ever been provided with people to do any mental practice appeared in Golf Digest a couple of years ago. It's something that I wrote called My Competitive Edge. This started actually about 3 years ago. I was invited up to the University of North Carolina to help the varsity golf team with psychology, basically. The coach said, I've got a group of fellows here that can really play, but they don't really know how good they are. He said they don't have a lot of big names in the group, they haven't won a lot of tournaments, but they can really play. Now, I'd like you to come up and give them some self-confidence. So I thought about it a lot. I said, what can we do for these fellows that don't have a very good self-concept so that they could play better? And I thought a little bit, and I thought about, what about Dumbo? Remember, Dumbo couldn't fly until he had a magic feather, right? But once he had the magic feather, he could fly. Well, of course, that isn't true. He could fly all the time. He had the ear apparatus to do it. But because he didn't believe he could do it, he couldn't until someone made him believe he could do it, and the magic feather made him believe. So I had to figure out something like a magic feather. So I drew up this little system. I called it originally the Carolina Edge. I took it up to these fellows and I said, we're going to give you something that nobody else, not one other college or university in this country has. That's a mental practice routine. You will have something that nobody else has. We went around the room and said, what's the best competitive round you ever shot? What's the best round you ever shot your home course? 64. Best competitive, 66, 67, 63. I said, do you realize that on those days you could have beaten anyone in the world? You have that kind of talent. But now we're going to give you something special, something that no one else has. And so we introduced them to the Carolina Edge, which became the competitive edge, and is available to all of you. I want to tell you about the 6 things that are on this card, because they are things that you can help you manage yourself psychologically on the golf course. The first one is a comment. It's really about progressive relaxation. You know, Dr. Jacobson has been around for years about teaching people how to relax, how to be able to sit in a chair very comfortably and start by your fingers are very relaxed, your arms are relaxed, your forearms, your shoulders, your neck, and so on, until progressively you learn to let the tension drain out of your body. It's been around for a long time. And we've had things since then. Transcendental meditation, learning how to meditate so that you could relax. You could let some of the tension flow out of your body. Things like biofeedback training, where you can put your finger in a little device and it shows how much tension's in your body. And when you relax, the little dial goes down. And you can teach yourself how to relax. These kinds of quieting things, playing music, alpha music that changes your brain waves from beta waves, which are going at a higher oscillation rate, to alpha waves, which are quieter, much better state to play golf in. Music. Different kinds of ways to relax. So that's one of the things we do on the card first, is learn, whether it's this progressive relaxation or some other way, to quiet yourself a little bit before you go tee off.
How many times have you arrived at the first tee and find that it's your tee time, you're supposed to be out there playing, and you haven't had a chance to warm up? A lot of people think a warm-up should consist of hitting 2 dandelions and a cigarette butt on the way to the first tee and then say, all right, how much are we playing for? But if you don't have the opportunity to go hit balls like the tour players do, who always warm up their engines before they start, if you don't have that opportunity, then here's a substitute called a no-ball warm-up. Take your 2 heaviest clubs, and as you're chatting on the first tee, getting ready to decide what the game's going to be about for the day, take your 2 heaviest clubs, your pitching wedge and sand wedge, and start with just a little half swing, warming up your arms and forearms first. Keeping your left wrist flat, letting the heaviness of the club feel out on the end like a rock on the end of a rope, and gradually make it go a little larger as you turn your body, keeping good rhythm. This is working now your back muscles and shoulder muscles and your lower back and finally into your legs until you're making a full swinging motion. Now take the club that you've selected for the first shot. It may be the driver, it may be a 3-wood, depending on the hole. Take that club and put it across your low part of your back and stretch the low part of your back just a little bit more. Do it easily at first so you don't hurt yourself. Then take the club, and this may be difficult for some of you, but you can work into it or at least simulate it. For me, it's easier because I've been doing it for a long time. But put it over your back, push it away from you, and stretch this way like in a golf swing. And what will happen after you do this a few times, that your arms will feel nice and long and loose, the way they should in a golf swing when you want to get good distance and good speed without a lot of effort. Instead of feeling, and the phrase is very accurate, feeling uptight, you want to feel long and loose so you can let it go out there with good distance without trying to have to hit it too hard. That's a no-ball warm-up for the first tee.
The second point of these 6 says, I know what my best swing looks like, and I will visualize it 3 times. It's kind of a mental imagery thing. It's being able to sit and close your eyes and seeing your best swing over and over and repeating it in your mind. You have a very clear picture of it. That's why it's important to get a video picture of your golf swing when you're hitting the ball well, so you see what it looks like. It's clear in your mind. You know what your good swing looks like. Divers do it. What do you think they're thinking about when they're standing up there on that 7-meter board with their back to the water? You see, arms outstretched, ready to enter. They're picturing exactly what they're going to do in the dive. Mental imagery, seeing their best dive in their mind's eye, doing it before they ever perform it. And golfers should do the same thing. You need to see positive pictures. If you don't, you can end up in a lot of crazy places. Places that you see right here that aren't really very much fun. And when you get in places like this, it is the result many times of having a bad picture in your mind, of not being positive about what you were going to do. Let me tell you how important being positive is. I had an experience just a few weeks ago. I went out and taught the National LPGA teaching seminar in out in San Diego, California at Singing Hills. And I was just finishing my clinic to this group of illustrious players, Patty Berg, Shirley Engelhorn, some of our finest, Peggy Kirk Bell, gals who are now great teachers in America. I was finishing my clinic, and it was on a driving range that was contained by netting and fencing and poles at the very end holding the netting up. And I said, I'm going to hit my last shot, and I want to demonstrate now and put all the things together we've talked about grip and visualization and good stance and good swing. And I said, you see that flag down there at the end of the range, which is some 240 yards down range, and you see the fence just beyond it. There's a green post over there 10 yards to the right. That's my target. The target was 6 inches in diameter, running 30 feet high. I hit the post 10 feet from the top and absolutely broke the crowd up. They said, do it again! Well, let me tell you, it was luck. But it wasn't all luck, because in my mind, I could see that ball going right to that target, and that is exactly what happened. And you can't imagine. Yes, you can, because you've all done it. You've all done the same kind of thing. You've seen balls go in the hole from off the green because you visualized it so well in your mind. But when you're standing there and you see you're standing in there and there's out of bounds to the right and there's water to the left, and the only pictures you can pull up are that, oh, it's going to go in the water, or I'm seeing it slice out of bounds, that's just what will happen. And that's why positive imagery is so important. The alternative isn't worth even discussing. The third point on that little card is self-concept. It says, I am a good player, I am a smart player. Like a professional, I know what I can do. See, I'm a good player, I'm a smart player. You're saying good things about yourself. You know what the alternative to that is? I'll tell you what it is. Let's imagine we're playing in a Pro-Am. You're my partner. You got 2 strokes on this hole. It's a par 5. You're a 36 handicapper, just the kind we love. You go down there and you hit down by the green in 3. Now all you have to do is pitch it on the green. 2-putt, even. We have a 4, a birdie on the hole, very simple. So you got to pitch it over a little bunker. So my man with 2 strokes goes and sticks it behind the ball. It goes in the bunker. He chops it twice. He picks up, puts it in his pocket. After we leave the green, I go over to him. I said, you idiot. You turkey. Every time something like this has a chance to help, you choke. You do it all the time. You're no good. You're a choker under pressure all the time. Now, you think that's going to help his performance on the next few holes? No way. But you know what? You talk to yourself that way. That's your self-talk. You hit a bad shot and you say, oh, you dummy. You can't. Why can't you ever hit a good shot when it counts? You talk to yourself that way, and it destroys you the same way as if you were telling it to someone else. You also need positive self-talk. Don't talk to yourself in that fashion. So this little thing helps because it destroys your self-concept. This little thing helps your self-concept. The other ideas on there would have to do with rehearsal, about rehearsing your regular routine, with being able to understand what competitive golf is all about, and finally with visualization. I'm going to go out and play my 18-hole round tomorrow. I'm going to play it now, though, in my mind. Not the putts, just the tee shots. Where do I want to hit it? Where do I want to hit the second shot? To see those things. And so when you're confronted, you've already been there before. There's one thing for certain. Your body won't lie for your brain. Whatever you're thinking, up here is going to happen. It's going to come out through that club and that ball. And if you're standing there on that first tee, and you start out with a decent picture, and you say, oh, it's going to hit a 250 down the middle. I'm going to hit a 250 right down the middle. 250. And you go to the top and something says, oh, no, you're not. Then you're destroyed. The mind can destroy you that quickly. Whether it's a putt, you're standing over the ball, and just as you take it back, it says, you're going to push it. And then what do? Boom, you close it quickly, and you pull it to the left. So your mind must be thinking the positive, clear pictures. When we talk about visualization, we talk about Dave Stockton, the great PGA champion, when he won at Southern Hills, and he said as he came to a clinic that we were at several years later, said, you know, when I won the first time, I'd already won in my mind. that week in early, I visualized myself walking down the 18th fairway with thousands of people cheering me as I walked to the green. And when it happened, he said, I've been here before. Well, the fact of the matter is that the ball controls the game, club controls the ball, your body controls the club, and your mind controls your body. And when you can learn to control your mind by practicing mentally, you're going to be a lot better player.